Hello, Plume fans, and welcome back to another behind-the-scenes video of an episode of the Plume audio series. As we are nearing our final episode of this series, I wanted to make one more behind-the-scenes video to share with all of you. I know I made one in the past that was all about editing the panels and the artwork that go into episodes of Plume, so this video is going to be all about the sound design. I made sure to choose an episode that was pretty sound heavy so I could show you exactly how much work goes into making all of the sound effects and music and moments work within an episode of Plume through the sound. So let's get into it. As you can see, we are going to start off in Logic, which is the program that I use to edit all of the audio for Plume. As you can see, I've already edited everyone's audio down into the takes that I liked the best, and then I have arranged them to correspond with their scene partners' lines, if you will, here in this project, so that when I'm ready to export it, they're all kind of situated roughly where I want them to be when the scene plays out. Now we are going to go over to Final Cut Pro, which is what I use to edit all of the elements of an episode together, the visuals with the audio. So this is kind of my empty template. I have the title card at the front with the theme music underneath. And now I am dragging over all of the panels that I've already edited for this episode into the project line. Then I go and find the finished audio, which I've already exported, and drag that into the project as well, and put it just kind of at the front of where all the panels start, where I want the audio to begin. Then I will go through the entire audio track and match up the panels throughout, either putting in or taking out spaces in the audio as I go along, and just kind of placing the image panels where I want them to be within the audio. And now comes the fun part. Now that I have the audio placed where I want it to be, I now go into my giant folder full of sound effects and start finding the effects that I want to put in this giant fight scene. Now there is a really fun tidbit that I've wanted to talk about for a while, and it's partially why I made this video so I can talk about it. But when I first started making this audio series, I wanted to give Corrick and Azil very specific audio cues or themes, I guess, regarding the sound effects that are used whenever they're on screen. Whenever they do something magical or do something with their powers, they each have a specific sound feel that I've given to them that are very different. So, for instance, Azil's sound effect kind of theme is rock and stone and very kind of hard, gritty sounds. So a lot of his sound effects that are in this file that I'm using are things like rocks sliding together and rumbles and earthquakes. One of his main sounds that I use whenever he uses his kind of tendrily magic is, I believe it's bamboo cracking. So it's a lot of like hard, brittle, cracking stone type sounds. There's a lot of like dirt. Sometimes I use an ice. It's like the sound of ice cracking along the surface. I use a lot of that kind of stuff for Azil. And then on the flip side, for Corrick, I have given Corrick a very kind of ethereal, light type sound. It's kind of hard to describe. It's a little bit less. It's a little less of a solid sound opposed to Azil, but it's a lot of things like wind. He has a very specific type of wind sound that I've given him throughout the show, and that has changed very slightly as I have changed editing platforms that I've used that differ from when I started making this show to now. I've changed the editing software I use, so some of those sounds are not quite the same as when they began, but I tried to get the closest I could to what I had first. So he has a lot of wind. You hear it a lot when he does anything with his glowy eyes. This little kind of descanty sound that you can hear. I think that's what it's called in my sound effect folder. The da 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 da. That's Hunger Games. But you know what I mean. It's like a choral type, really pretty, airy, kind of haunting little melody that plays whenever he does something particularly magical. So that is kind of associated to him. He also has a lot of kind of sizzling sounds. So when his magic affects someone or is extremely strong or something, or when he's being attacked, he has like a sizzly sound. I think the sound effect that I use is an ice cube in a frying pan. I think that's what it's listed as. But a lot of kind of either sizzly sounds, but more kind of ethereal, haunting, kind of ghostly like sounds. That is a really good contrast to Aziel's hard stone sounds that he is given. So now I'm just going through and I'm adding multiple sound effects where I need them. So a lot of the time I will layer a ton of different sound effects on top of each other. Aziel also has, like Corrick has the kind of high ethereal kind of choral melody that plays. Aziel has a vocal sound effect as well, but it's a very low, deep kind of chanting sound. So I'll layer that sound all throughout whenever Aziel is doing something with his powers. That'll be going on for a long time underneath until he gets blown away, of course, and then it stops. And this was fun because I finally got to put Corrick sound effects onto Vesper. So Vesper also has similar sound effects to Corrick when she finally gets powers as well. She and Corrick have the same kind of audio theme going on. So there's a little bit of a double layer of those ethereal sounds happening when she comes on the scene. And then I have a bunch of things. I have a lot of like rope tightening, the bamboo cracking. I have a couple of thump sounds like bodies hitting the ground, or punch noises or fighting kind of sound effects. Just something to kind of add to the tension and the scene overall. But it's a lot. As you can see, my file here on the side, I have a lot of sound effects, and I've had problems with my computer that I use to edit. I edit on a big desktop, and the desktop has crashed a couple of times, and I've had to like reinstall everything that I had on it. So a lot of the time that means half of these sound effects will be gone. Just, I don't know, just for some reason, they're just not here anymore. They're listed in the folder, but there's not anything there. So I've had to go back and re-download a bunch of the sound effects that I use because they keep disappearing because my computer kept crashing. But hopefully that is finished and it won't ever crash again and I won't have to worry about it. So now is kind of the fun, tweaky business of adding in all the thumps and the slides and the body hits and all of the little sound effects that build together to make the overall sound design of the entire episode. As you can see, all of the sound effects very quickly add up to a bunch of things stacked atop one another to make the final layout of the episode. It's really fun. I've always loved sound effects, and part of me still really wants to try and get more into Foley work and sound effects, that kind of thing, just because I've always loved making sounds, and I've had a lot of fun getting to make sort of Foley-esque sounds, but I mean, most of this is digital. But if you check out my other show, Girls Next Door, a lot of those early episodes, I did the Foley myself. Just with what I had in my house. And I've done that once or twice with Plume, but not as often. It takes a while, but when it's done, it sounds really cool. So that is how I put all of the audio underneath all of the visual and make the final outcome of an episode of Plume. I really hope that you enjoyed this behind the scenes video. Please follow us, like our page on Facebook. We are under Pursued by Bear Productions. There's a link in the doobly-doo below, as well as a very brand new, shiny Twitter account. You can follow us on Twitter at PBABear, all one word. We are still a very baby account on Twitter, but there will be some fun updates both with Plume as well as Girls Next Door, and a new project that is coming out in this next year that we are working on called Fairy Tale Corner. So please check that out. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook. I believe we also have a brand new Instagram account as well. If that floats your boat, I'm going to be trying to put up kind of behind the scenes photos and cast photos and that kind of thing. So check that out if you like. We will be updating that very soon. But there will be more Plume, so not to worry. We have some things in the works for next year, so even though the final episode is coming out very soon, it will not be the end of the Plume audio series. Also, if you haven't already, please go and follow Lynn Smith, who is the author and artist and creator of Plume, who so very kindly has allowed us to make this show using her beautiful story and artwork and characters. But go look her up on Twitter, follow her page on Facebook, read the original comic in all its entirety at plumecomic.com. It's fantastic. I know she also has a Kickstarter out right now because she is working on the Plume Omnibus, and they have hit a ton of their stretch goals. So check that out because there's a lot of cool prizes going on and a lot of fun stuff coming your way through that Kickstarter. So go check that out and support Kaylin and the future of Plume because she's awesome and the story is awesome. And I'm very happy that we get to be a tiny part of the Plume universe in our own way. I also just want to say thank you so much to everyone who has watched us and supported us and followed us and liked our videos and talked about us throughout the couple of years that we have been making Plume, as well as any of you who followed Girls Next Door before Plume began. Thank you so much for supporting all of the shows and content that we make here at Pursued by a Bear. It started with Girls Next Door years ago and continued with Plume and will be continuing in the future with Fairy Tale Corner and with other projects that we're working on. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who have been so supportive towards us and all that we do. We do all of this for the love of acting and creating and putting something out there that we have fun making and that we hope you have fun watching. It's a passion project for me and for everyone who has been involved in any of our shows. So thank you so much for all of your support and for continuing to inspire all of us here to keep making content and shows and pushing our creative limits to bring you something fun that we all like doing. It's a real pleasure. So thank you so much. Keep a lookout for the final episode of the Plume audio series. Follow us on Facebook, on Twitter. I'll put all the links in the doobly-doo below. But keep an eye out because Plume is not over yet. We still have some more to come, so keep checking back. And thank you again. Have a fantastic end of the year. Soldier on to 2018. We'll see you there. This is Lindsay Zanna, the producer, editor, and director at Pursued by a Bear Productions, and the voice of Vesper Grey. Thank you so much.